Does your mother need a copy of the rent check?
Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. It is your favorite dark sorcerer here. And tonight I want to kind of just talk to you about some things that have not only been coming up to my attention from people asking questions about sorcery, how do I begin things, to what are your thoughts on this, and this. There's kind of a lot here that I want to go over. And there's a few of them that I think really needs to be discussed. Okay? Now, the first question that was brought up to me is, how does one get into sorcery or any kind of practice? First of all, if you're interested in sorcery, magic of any kind, be it, say for an example, a lot of the ones that come my way is Satanism. Okay? How do I get into Satanism? What is Satanism? How can I sell my soul to Satan? The normal propaganda that really speaks uneducation. Okay? And then they sit there and wonder, why doesn't he reply? The question you just asked takes 2 seconds on Google to name off a dozen different Google sites. Okay? A dozen different Google sites. Okay? So that you can pop up asking just about any type of question regarding Satanism or demonolatry. Okay? 2 seconds is all it takes. Type in demonolatry. Type in, styles of Satanism. Okay? I know I've done a series on it. You can go underneath YouTube and type it in. Go underneath traditional Satanism, theistic Satanism. You're going to come up with a lot of different types of practitioners, but it comes down to also the organization that's putting out the content. Okay? Now, as for getting into these traditions, it really comes down to you as the potential adept, the acolyte. The best thing for you to do is to delve into books. Go to the library, pick up some books on Satanism. You have them from, say, for example, Vina Satanas, her prayer book. You have the Islamic Satanic Bible. You have the Demonic Bible by Turksu Zij. You have the Satanic Bible by Anton LaVey. You have the Unholy Bible by Reverend Cain. There's just so many Bibles out there and works that are put out just by Satanists alone. And you take Aleister Crowley. How many times have I spoken on him? Okay? He's got 10 books in a journal that he put out. He has a Patreon page, a YouTube page. Right here, he has a blog even. Okay? And yet people come to me constantly. I have probably 250 potential friend requests just on Facebook alone. Okay? Of people messaging me over things that they could easily do themselves. Okay? You want to learn about Satanism? Pick up a book. Begin collecting the items required to create an altar. Do the rites that they suggest and find out which system of satanic magic fits you. Be it agnostic, spiritual, theistic, Luciferian, traditional, demolators, demonolatry itself, you know, just pick up a book and begin your journey there. Plain and simple. You don't have to be initiated into organizations such as the Satanic Temple or the Church of Satan, the Joy of Satan. Not every system or organization is going to fit you as an individual. 9 times out of 10, you're going to be better off as a solitary practitioner, okay? Rather than joining these organizations, making a big splash. The Joy of Satan, the Church of Satan, you don't see much of them, okay? Publicly. Over the last few years, the biggest name out there is the Satanic Temple. Only ones out there making the biggest splash there is through drama, through lawsuits. Now, when I was on Facebook last night, I had a lady, I came across a post in I want to call it a satanic, kind of like a scripture type group, okay? And the question was, I've been thinking about joining the Satanic Temple. What is your all thoughts on that? And a lot of it was negative feedback, okay? Some of it was even kind of a duality type factor. But I ended up putting my 2 cents in, and it took the poster by storm, okay? I gave my personal experience with this group, okay, who claims to be about all Satanists, okay? How many times have I spoken? If your words and your actions don't align, don't follow it, okay? If you're going to say that you're there for all Satanists, and you're doing all this shit for the entire satanic community, then don't you think that your action should actually back that up? Okay? My point exactly. Right there. In this case, when I went to them asking for their help and their advice, they shot a message back my way saying that our agendas do not match. Point blank. Now, I'm not going to get into why I contacted them because that's a whole nother story. But what I will tell you is that they're just making a big old splash, and in their their newsletters and everything, they clearly state this violates our members' rights. Okay, especially over the abortion laws, the need for religious worship, and all this other stuff, which has already been in place by the First Amendment and the Religious Land Use and Personalized Religious Acts and so forth. Okay, not mentioning the 1967 Civil Rights Act. Okay, which literally goes back to the Constitution, the Blue Law, and all that fun political stuff that protects your rights as individuals, especially right here in the U.S. Okay, but when you get into this stuff, you're going to find that not everything is going to suit you, okay? A lot of the issues with the Joy of Satan is because they work with the Swastika, okay? And they view it as neo-Nazism, okay? Now, if they actually took the time to actually study the Swastika, they would know that for hundreds of years prior to Adolf Hitler, it was actually in Hermetics, Kabbalah, and a few other systems, including secret societies that used this symbol. Okay? It wasn't until World War II and the Nazi Party that this symbol became a symbol of hate, and ever since then, everybody has lost their balls and don't want to fucking deal with it. Okay? They don't want to do their own homework. They'd rather just say, oh, it's a symbol of hate. Don't want it. Boom. Gone. Well, I say fuck you to these asshats. Why? Because they don't have the fucking balls to do their own homework and delve into the systems and learn for themselves. They take everything at face value and they go along with the herd conformity. Okay? Now, the next question. Are things such as witchcraft evil? The answer is no. If all things are evil and you're coming at things from a Judeo-Christian institutionalized thought form, okay, then, and you're saying you're going with what the Bible says, you're already committing a state of duality and hypocrisy. Okay? And this is why. In the Old Testament, you have spiritual conjuration. Okay? Spiritual conjuration. You have human sacrifice, animal sacrifice. Just in the Old Testament alone, within the books of Moses. Okay? If you go into the book of Genesis, you have human sacrifice. To test one's faith, Abraham was told to sacrifice his own son. Human sacrifice. Okay? You go into the book of the law, known as Leviticus. You have animal sacrificing within the burnt offerings. Okay? You have numerous things that the Judeo-Christian institutions don't like, but yet you see it in every day-to-day variety. Okay? Everyday variety. And it has dwindled into the governments and down into the populace. Okay? So, if you go into voodoo, animal sacrifice is probably one of the biggest things within the African Caribbean traditions. Okay? If you go into Africa, just the ceremony alone is smearing, there's really no nice way to say this, so I'm just going to come out and be blunt. Okay? So if you're squeamish, walk away now. Okay? If not, and you want to learn, continue following. So here it is. Some of the rituals and rites deal with the cutting off of a chicken's head and letting the blood flow onto an altar. Okay? Some are even dogs, where they use a machete and cut off the head and let it swing over the altar. Okay? Or even the ritual itself. Other rites deal with the drinking of urine, smearing of the feces on the face, and slaughtering of goats, cows, chickens. This is just an African Caribbean tradition. If we go into necromancy, for an example, you deal with, again, this time with herbalism. Okay? You're dealing with the cleansings. You're dealing with spiritual conjuration. Look at the Shem priests of Egypt. Okay? Look at the warriors, the holy monks of the Hashishin. Okay? Or that of the Knights of Templar. Okay? They were holy monks, but yet they took lives. Okay? Human sacrificing, battle, hardened soldiers, personal army of the bishops in the church. Okay? There was numerous different organizations that were like this. Not just these three things. Okay? You go into the New Testament, Lazarus rising. Okay? Jesus Christ, literally brought Lazarus back from the dead. Another one, just about a chapter or two later, you have the Centurion's daughter, where he said she is not dead but sleeps, rise, yada, yada, yada. Oops, 2 counts right there of necromancy. And what about himself after he was crucified and brought back from the dead. He came back from the dead. Form of necromancy. Okay, this is a form of lichdom. Okay, he was a master of death. Okay, so this is just between the biblical and the left-hand path. And all I've covered so far is just the Bible and the Afro-Caribbean traditions. Okay, you get into any other form of traditions, like I said. Let's go into blood sorcery for an example. Okay, blood sorcery is perhaps one of the oldest traditions of sorcery out there. Okay, for an example, in the Old Testament, the book of Leviticus, you have the fact that they would slaughter a goat, an unblemished goat. That means no spots. They would burn the carcass, set the entrails on the altar to let the sun beat down on it, which creates let's just say it's a wonderful aroma that their God enjoyed. The Bible literally says it aroused his attention. Okay? Now, I know what you're thinking. That's probably a sick thing to say, right? Well, read the Bible. It says it right there. Okay? Second of all, the blood is placed in a jar and placed on the tabernacle. Okay? When you go to Mass, don't you find it interesting that the bread represents the body and the wine represents his blood? Think about that for just a moment. This is nothing new. So the question comes down, is it evil or is it good? It comes down to your interpretation, really. It really does. Now, in the left-hand path, namely Satanism, demonolatry, witchcraft in general, we work with a lot of things of death, okay? Especially if you're a necromancer, okay? You have things like skulls, because skulls are closely assembling that of the spiritual nexus, okay? That means portal and a direct link to death, okay? And if you're working in any given system, the best way to commune with spirits is through the skull. Having bones for tossing, for bone readings. Having a scepter made of, say, oh, I don't know, let's go with a lamb or a goat head, okay? Dealing with, say, for example, hey, Ross Demon, IV, what's going on, man? So there's really a lot of things that deal with necromancy and witchcraft. Right here, just in this few minutes that I've talked. Now, one of the biggest things that connect all of this is the perception, okay, and the biasness. When you take an atheist who's already made up their mind that there is no God, there is no devil, okay, there's no such thing as magic. What's the point of calling yourself a Satanist and performing rituals and calling on the very beings that you claim don't exist? That's duality and hypocrisy. Okay? Denying other forms of sorcery while you're doing the exact same thing is a form of duality and hypocrisy. Okay? Why deny that you're doing the same exact thing? You see my point there. Okay? Now, when you get underneath social media today, you're going to be confronted with arguments. You're going to be, where's your sources and where's your proof? Okay? This type of stuff. And social media groups such as Facebook and Twitter and all, Instagram and all that. Okay? I've had my fair share over the years. Trust me. I have had a lot of my fair share of these things. And it's like, if you're not willing to open your mind and literally take a look at the sources that are put forth, well, Google doesn't count. Bullshit. Most of everything that you can learn is on Google. You go to apps like Script. You've got over 1,000 PDFs from occult and religious, practices just in PDF format. Okay, you go to Amazon. You go to eBay. You go to let's go with A Books. Okay, you're going to find a lot of these books that you can get, but it comes down to the person willing to accept that this book has this perception. This book has this perception. Wow, they're common, but separate. Okay? Now you take, let's go with Richard Cavendish. Okay? He put out 3 editions of the Black Arts. Okay? In each one, he lists a journey into necromantic and black magic by Eliphas Levi when he was in England, namely London. And he had a very, let's just call it distinct encounter with the spirit that scared him so bad he went back to hermeneutics. Okay? Now, it only gives a small little portion of that story. But yet, if you go into the Doctrines of High Magic by Eliphas Levi, and you get under necromancy, guess what? You're going to have a huge story right there that fills in those little blanks. You go into the Magus by Francis Barrett. Guess what? There's another perception of necromancy. Okay? You go into the Bible. There's another perception. You go back into ancient Egypt, Greek, Roman, and yes, even Slavic, Saudi Arabian, Baltic, Germanic, Norse, and yes, even Welsh. And you're going to see different perceptions of necromancy and necromantic rituals. Okay? Now, the last portion of this is, are witches evil? Okay? Like I said, when you get underneath YouTube, you're going to see a lot of videos underneath any different style. People talking about being an ex-devil worshiper, being an ex-Satanist, an ex-Polero, or Bruja, Bokor, whatever. Okay? And they've all got their own little stories. Look at John Ramirez. He literally did a video called The Dangers of Santeria in the Occult, where he claimed to start out in, guess what? Santeria. And then went into Pedo Mayambi. Okay? And when he became a Christian, now he's an ex-Satanist. 2 different traditions. 3 different traditions right there. So which one is it? And then you notice, oh, he put out a book. Now he's big shot. He claims to be an ex-Satanist. Okay? These are fakes. They're only in it for the ego and the popularity. But you've also got these other types of people out there who only come at these traditions from a right-winged fascist perspective. I'm talking JCI, okay, Judo-Christian institutions. Now, for example, if you look at the African Caribbean traditions, okay, a lot of these traditions are concurrent and intermingled with Catholicism, okay, meaning they've taken their spirits, the Loa or the Orisha, for an example, have taken on the form of saints, okay? Now, especially if you go down into Mexico and you go into, say, Santa Muerte, for an example. Santa Muerte is an offshoot of Mary, okay, Saint Mary. So there's a lot of things that are intermingled, and a lot of these Christians, when they come to the left-hand path, they don't do their homework, okay? Anybody could look up a grist bag or a mojo bag and kind of learn the different colors. It's really not that hard. Like I said earlier in this video, a 2-second Google search can tell you just about anything you want to know about a Griscus bag or a Mojo bag, what it is, what you can do with it. But if you're only going to speak on 1% of it, like say one topic, and not go into other characteristics of what that item can do, you basically limited that knowledge. You've limited it, okay? You're not going into the full detail. Now, say for example, I was at my mother's house earlier. We were dropping off our son because we both got to work tomorrow. I've got to be to work at 7 a.m. and she's got to be to work at 2:30. So we don't really have the time in between to take him out. So we were out there and we had supper tonight. And I was sitting there in my chair, and I was watching different videos on magic, sorcery. And one of the things I looked up was a brewer. Okay, I just started typing in witch names just to see what would happen. Okay. Now, when you type in Brujo, okay, for example, you're going to get, Virginian type practitioners such as Sanctus Luis, Brujo Sanctus Luis. Good guy. I've had conversations with him in the past. He comes from a heritage of family heritage of Brujeria, which is another form of Congo tradition, okay, of Africa, which is also associated with the African Caribbean traditions, going from Cuba, South America, up into North America and such, okay? So, anyways, I figured, I just watched a movie last night called The Old Ways. And the one term that came up was brewer. Okay, now brewer is a female practitioner of Santeria, okay, Brujeria, and Pedo, okay. It is a term for a female practitioner of witchcraft. Unlike in Budan, the Mambo, or Mama, if you're going by Dominican Republic, Haitian Budan, New Orleans, Creole, or that of African, it is Mambo, okay, which is a female practitioner. Now, if we're talking Bokor, that would be a Capelata, okay? And it's interesting that this movie only focused solely around the female witch term. And there seems to be a lot of movies in Hollywood that surround just that aspect. They don't go into the male practitioners, which is kind of sexist if you think about it. But, it is what it is. I mean, then you got shows like The Originals or The Vampire Diaries, Charmed, either the old one with Holly Marie Combs, Shannon Doherty, Rose McGowan, Alyssa Milano, or the new one, which is kind of an offshoot of that one. From what I understand, that one is actually their kids, if I'm not mistaken. But I just started watching that one tonight, so I can't really give an opinion on that one yet. So, anyways, even the Witches of East End, okay, talk about warlocks, male practitioner. But if you go back into the old world, you have the Hexa, Swedish. Not only a term for witchcraft, but it's also a practitioner, okay? The Svega, which is a female and male practitioner within Romanian, and that's right, Italian witchcraft, okay? You get into African, you have the Eshi, or the Aji, okay? Not just the Bokor, or the Hangan, the Mimbo, the Babalawi, okay, and such, okay? And you can't forget about the Bokor with the C, which is actually a witch doctor. Okay, so you got to take everything into perspective here. So, anyways, go back to the story. I was going down and I was typing in things like Bruja and Brujo just to see what would pop up, because normally when you look up things like Palo Mayambi or Santeria, Quimbanda, you're just seeing rituals and dancing and documentaries. Not many people practice and teach what they practice. So, and or you see it from a video game like a D&D type, special. So, anyways, I found this one. I thought it would be kind of cool. It was a real experience with a brua, which not clickbait, paranormal saints, or story, paranormal story time. Okay, and this is by, I'm probably gonna butcher her name, but it's Daisy Maria. It's Daicy Maria. Okay. Now I've also watched a few others of her videos, and she's pretty cool. But she's coming at things from a Christianized perspective. Now, according to this video, the first one that I watched, the one I just read, this individual, she and her mother went to Mexico to take care of her grandfather. Okay. Now, apparently, the guy had 2 strokes. His first wife died at a young age, and then he meets this Brua. They get married, whatever. They move in, and he's had a couple of strokes. Okay. Now, supposedly, the story goes that they go down. Basically, this is a Christianized perspective where they go down, they start finding these little items that are considered associated with the occult. You probably heard the story so many times. So, anyways, they're cleaning. They're going. They're cleaning the house. They're going through the clothes. They find a little mojo bag. They do a little research on it. They don't like the feel of it. It's a little heavy. It's, it's on a Christianized fear aspect. And they do a little Google search, and it goes, "Oh, red is associated with lust. It's a lust ritual. It's basically a photo of the man's genital region and certain herbs, in a letter." And then they find this woman's, undergarments stuffed in a pillow. Okay, a form of black magic, so to speak. But then they start praying to God. To God. Bundy, if you're into voodoo. So right there, it's kind of like a turnoff right there, because right there, the rest of it's going to be bias. It's clearly a Christianized perspective. Now, they prayed to God, and this woman just disappeared. It's been a month, nothing. They come back to the U.S., and somebody taking care of their grandfather, fluffing the pillow and find something hard in it. So she, takes out, it's the undergarment. They burn it, and guess what? It's a demonic flame. Okay, you see where the dramatics come in. You see where the biasness comes into these things. You want to know about something? Pick up a fucking book. Go into Google, type in, learn about these traditions. Hell, my advice, delve into them, practice them, get the experience. And if you don't, understand it, go to one of these practitioners and learn from them. If you're into Palo, either Monty or Mayambi, join a house that has what you resonate with. Okay? If you're into Santeria, okay, get initiated. Take the cleansing baths and all that stuff. Get into the practices. Begin your studies and your journey underneath a priest or priestess. Okay? You get into any tradition going back to the 6th century AD or BC for that matter, you're going to see a master and an apprentice for a reason. Why do you think the JCI, when you go to church, they always have a hierarchy? Okay? They always have a hierarchy. You have the priest, you have the bishop, the pastor, okay, the reverend. You have the what is known as security, okay, the bouncers, if you wish, and, and you have everybody else. Everybody has a faction, okay. You're gonna see this, okay. There's a reason you go to school to learn. Don't you think it's the same way within a religious perspective? Why do you think being initiated into any given system is necessary? You can pick up a book, but that will only get you so far. You want the full experience to get all the secrets and all that stuff that's not placed in the books. Become initiated. Okay? But either way you look at it, dedication, commitment, okay, intense research. I can't tell you how many hours, years that I spent just studying each religion, each philosophy that I've gotten into over the last 32 years. 32 years, okay? I started out in vampirism, got into witchcraft, Satanism, demonolatry, okay? Was initiated into Palo and Santeria when I lived down in Tucson, okay? Since then, I went back into Satanism, back into black magic. And over the last couple of years, necromancy. I got back into necromancy full time. Okay, I got back in since last year. I started delving into Haitian Buddha, getting into the old ways. Okay, and recently, I delved back into Palo Mayumbi and Santeria, and I started getting into brujeria. Okay, brujeria. Why? Because these traditions are associated with what I'm studying. Necromancy. It is a path of necromantic rites and rituals. Spiritualism. Spiritual conjurations. This is what I've been doing. You look at any one of my apprentices that have gone on, they've succeeded in making those connections because they too are delving into the research. They're delving into the history and the mythology. Okay? They're learning for themselves, not taking things at face value. I've always said, back up what you preach and always make yourself available to the public. I don't see many people doing that these days. They post a video and you don't hear from them, even if you ask a question. Most you get is an emoji. That's it. You want to learn one of these systems and you want to speak about it? Don't come at it from a JCI perspective only. Open your mind and let go. Experience it firsthand, because that's the only way you're going to have that full understanding of the difference between the corrupted, the fake, and what is real. All right? So with that said, have a good night. I want to thank Ross, Damon, IV for jumping on here, Stephen Clay, and one of my apprentices, Akalani Ramos. Okay. For those of you who are going to jump in after this fact, I hope you take my words to heart. All right? Learn for yourself. If you have questions, feel free to reach out. Okay? I know over the last couple of days, I've had a woman, what is it, Ann Daniels, that keeps calling me on Messenger. I don't pick up because, number one, I don't know you. Number two, I know you've been on my Facebook page, friends list for a while, but you don't have an appointment with me. Okay? And I don't have the time to sit there and chit chat. Okay? So if you want to get in touch with me and ask questions, I'll share what I know. But if you want to sit down and actually become an apprentice, or you want to actually get serious about your studies and practices, then we'll talk. All right? But I'm not going to do small talk with you. I'm not going to be. You want to sit there and chit chat? Join a social group. Get into an all girls band or something. I'm just saying. I'm not that kind of guy. All right. So have a good night, and until next time.